TypeFinal2 is a horizontal scrolling shooter video game developed and published by Granzilla. Part of Ireme's long-running R-Type series, it is a sequel to R-Type Final released in 2004 and the first R-Type game in over a decade, after the release of R-Type Tactics 2, Operation Bitter Chocolate, in 2009. The game was released for Microsoft Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X/S on April 29, 2021. R-Type is a science fiction horizontal scrolling shooter video game franchise developed and published by Ireme for arcade systems and home game platforms. The first entry in the series was released way back in 1987, R-Type, followed by several sequels for other platforms. 10 games in total have been released in the series, and gameplay centers on an intergalactic war between humans and the Bido, a powerful extraterrestrial race that are made from both biological life forms and mechanical structures. Now, most of the earlier R-Type games have the player controlling the R9 Arrowhead star vessel, although other entries have slightly altered versions of the ship instead. But with R-Type Final 2, there are over 100 different ships to unlock, buy, and choose from, and these series of videos will highlight the best of them. This video will focus on one of the more desired and powerful ships to be found in R-Type Final 2, the Amphibian III, or B-1C3, which is number 083 in the museum. Overall, the Amphibian III comes with a Bido Spirit Cannon 3, a Beast Force type, an eyeball bit, and 2 types of missiles, an eyeball homing missile and an eyeball scatter bomb. This video will detail each and show you how powerful and useful the Amphibian III can be when it comes to getting through the many difficult stages in R-Type Final 2. Now, let's get into the details here of what this great ship has to offer. So first, let's discuss wave cannons and what they even are. The wave cannon is a core feature of R-Type. Though not quite as uniquely identifying as the Force, it's still one of the defining features of flying an aircraft. The wave cannon is an energy-based weapon that has been modified into many forms, often appropriate to the design and function of the ship that carries it. It's a standard feature, in some form or another, on every aircraft in the Space Corps, and thus there are many different kinds of wave cannons. When charging a wave cannon, the pilot must forego firing the main weapons, both Vulcan cannon and any applicable force weapons, though missiles will continue to fire and fly defensively until the charge has reached the desired limit. The pilot is committed to firing the wave cannon once the charge sequence has started. There is no way to cancel it short of ship destruction or firing the weapon. Since most missions present a target-rich environment, however, this is rarely a concern. Part of mastering an aircraft is knowing how its wave cannon works and when best to use it. Note that a wave cannon can be fired at any point during the charge sequence, even at a 50% charge. A wave cannon shot can pack a good punch and often pierce weak targets. Typically, each aircraft will possess a single wave cannon, but exceptions do exist. In R-Type Final, every wave cannon has a number of loops. A loop is when the beam bar is filled all the way. If more loops are available, continuing to charge the wave cannon will fill the beam bar again, increasing the energy of the wave cannon shot. The pilot will know when the maximum loop has been achieved when the wave meter flashes. Although it takes a long time, with certain wave cannons it is possible to charge a beam so powerful that can even kill bosses in a single blast. The most common number of loops is 2, but the number varies between 1 and 4, with a single wave cannon having 7 loops. The loops are labeled Beam, High, Strong, Great, Special, Devil, and Bido. Most wave cannons are unique to, at best, a small group of ships in the R series. However, the fully customizable R-99 Last Dancer, R-100 Curtain Call, and R-101 Grand Finale can equip any wave cannon. Now, in our TypeFinal2, the Amphibian III uses a Spirit Cannon 3, which is a 4-loop max type of wave cannon. This is the most powerful Spirit weapon, and when the charge is at full capacity, the energy reaches a mature phase and is then discharged. The Force unit is a defining feature of our type. It is a pilot-controlled satellite unit created by Tissue. A Force unit typically consists of a glowing orange sphere with a number of control rods detached. The Force, like its cousin the Bit device, is virtually indestructible and damages whatever it contacts. Pilots should be warned that whatever an attached Force doesn't eat will pass right through it. It contains a catalyst function that converts injected energy into different waveforms. The Force is our type's most famous and unique innovation. Described as an indestructible living weapon, it is a glowing, often spherical pod that can be attached to almost any Space Corps ship. It is fashioned out of cells that are captured in their embryonic stages, which are then grown as per specifications to what type of Force it will be. In the R-Type series alone, there are over 50 different varieties of Forces. Force units allow the pilot to focus different waveforms through it in order to create offensive beams. The type of beam depends on the color of their laser crystal. When launched independent of the spacecraft, each Force operates on its own artificial intelligence, if it possesses one. Though no longer actively controlled, a skilled pilot can learn how a Force that is detached acts and use that to its advantage. Forces are gained by first obtaining a laser crystal power-up. This summons an embryonic Force device. Further collection of crystals cause the Force to grow up to a maximum of 3. With each level of growth, the Force's attached and detached attacks will increase in overall power. A Force device can be attached to either the front or back of a spaceship, allowing the pilot to provide a rear attack that otherwise would not exist. The pilot normally has a single button with which to control the Force, for both release and recall. By pressing the button when the Force is attached to the ship, it is rocket ejected away in whatever direction it's facing. When detached, the Force can be made to fire, but it uses an array of simple blasters rather than the weapons it supplies to the ship, though a few Forces are exceptions to this rule, like the Camera Force series. This is because the ship's blaster's energy itself is being channeled into the Force and amplified by the crystal inside. By pressing the button again, the Force can be recalled back to the ship. Because it homes in on the player's ship, the player can control it in a limited manner by moving the ship as it's returning. It is standard behavior for a Force to try to stay on the same lateral plane as the pilot if the pilot keeps distant. If the pilot gets too close, the Force will approach and attach itself automatically. Should the pilot switch sides, the Force will as well, unless the pilot closes for a docking, in which case the Force will generally approach the pilot's ship once it is close enough in order to speed the process along. The Force also, importantly, acts as a shield. It is indestructible and can block normal energy weapons, such as shots. It can also damage or destroy enemies by collision. Even though Force units are massive objects that are normally attached to the front of an aircraft, predictive visual software within the craft removes it from sight when it would otherwise block the pilot's viewpoint. In our TypeFinal2, the Amphibian III uses a Beast Force type, which is a Force made from a organism. It features 2 long tentacles and 2 short tentacles, and with laser energy, it will spew out pure organisms. The red Force is the anti-air laser B. The blue Force is the reflection laser B, and the yellow Force is the anti-ground laser B. A bit device is a satellite weapon that is placed above and below a spacecraft. There are several varieties of bits, with the bulk not appearing until R-Type Final. In most configurations, a bit device is a sphere that complacently rotates. It is composed of a similar energy as that of a Force, though fully man-made, and shares the nigh invincibility of that unit. A bit device cannot be destroyed by normal means, and damages whatever it touches. The bit conductor mounted on aircrafts allow control of these devices. Like other aspects in the series, the bit devices have been called other things, such as PIT and Plasmo. Unlike a force, bit devices cannot be detached from their places unless it's part of an attack. Only 2 bits can be mounted at once, collected one at a time, though exceptions exist, and both are always of the same type. A bit's primary function is that of defense, to protect the craft against vital shots and contact by minor enemies. The standard bit seen in most missions can also fire shots if a particular laser crystal is equipped, and sometimes both bits are required. It deals less damage than a force, but still has enough stopping power to give a pilot time to get away from more serious threats. There are 12 different types of bit devices throughout the R-Type series: Blue Pod, Camera Bit, Eyeball Bit, Green Pod, Mr. Healy Bit, Sci-Bit, Sci-Bit Plus, Red Pod Round Bit, Shadow Bit, Shield Bit, and the Yellow Pod. In our TypeFinal2, the Amphibian III uses what's known as an eyeball bit, which was developed to solve the compatibility problem that arose between fighters from the Biosynthesis project and previous bit devices. Additionally, the Amphibian III can also use a shadow bit, which is based on the round bit. Here, firing capabilities are sacrificed in favor of a constant energy flow that damages enemies on contact. By sharply maneuvering his fighter through space, the pilot can force the bit to serve as a support weapon. Missiles are common ballistic weapons in the R-Type missions, adding auto-firing missiles to the ship's offense. This entry also refers to ordnance that acts more like bombs. These weapons are fire and forget, in that they cannot be controlled by the pilot once launched. They are primarily for offense, though some of them, particularly the homing variety, can also act as point defense against incoming enemies and projectiles. Once missiles are acquired, they have infinite ammo. Most aircraft have a small number of missile options that they can be deployed with, typically between 2 and 3, but variants exist. Once deployed, the missile type cannot be changed, so careful thought regarding which missile best complements the ship's force, wave cannon, and bit devices must be considered. In our TypeFinal2, the Amphibian III comes with 2 missile types, the Eyeball Homing Missile and the Eyeball Scatter Bomb. The Eyeball Homing Missile was developed to be compatible with Bido-derived fighters. The functions are nearly identical to the homing missile. The Eyeball Scatter Bomb is a cluster bomb developed for Bido craft. It scatters on landing, releasing destructive energy. Coming up next in our R-Type ship series will be the Arvanche, a very powerful ship of the Bido variety. So stay tuned for our next video, which highlights this great ship. Thank you for viewing. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please like and subscribe to this channel. Again, thank you.